Hello. Okay, so can you see and hear me okay? Okay. Well, hello, I'm Georgie from the South Australian Tourism Commission. I am the social media and content manager, and I have been with the agency for almost 4 years. And yeah, so today we are excited to share a little bit about how the SATC has reacted to not only the bushfires but coronavirus as well. So just as a quick agenda, I'll give you a quick overview of the social and content strategy here at SATC and how that fits into the marketing team. We'll go through the bushfire phase 1 and 2, and then without much of a break in reality and in the presentation, there will be a little bit of a run through of COVID-19 and the 3 phases that we've got running with that. Take you through a little bit about EDM strategy and then open up to questions. So it's going to be 30 minutes. And there's a ticker on the left-hand side, so that's good. We can keep track of time. So the South Australian Tourism Commission is responsible really for bringing visitors into the state, and it's an industry that is a really big growth industry. And at the end of 2019, we recorded $8.1 billion in the visitor economy. And the role of SATC's marketing team is really to focus on bringing international and national visitors to the state, but as well as getting South Australians dispersed across the state, so we can to get money into the visitor economy, which then in turn increases jobs. And at the end of December 2019, we're not quite so much right now, but the tourism industry was responsible for around 40,000 jobs. So it's a massive industry, and with the likes of bushfire and COVID-19, it does have a really massive impact. So we're not through it all yet. It's an ever-changing beast, but yeah, we'll do what we can to share with you what we've done to date. So just on a very, very top line level, the social and content team sits within the marketing team, and we're part of the digital marketing team. So when I first started, the social media was really focused on increasing our growth, like our fan growth. And we were really focused on getting likes and comments, like real sort of vanity metrics, which is not so much today. We'll go through that shortly. But we did this quite aggressively for 2 years, and we sort of were really focused on those vanity metrics, and we did end up becoming the fastest growing in Australia, and we took over New South Wales and WA for the size of our accounts, and then we became sort of the most engaged of the accounts. And that was all well and good. Like, it was a really good starting point, but we had this massive community, and what could we do with that to show our industry that was actually providing some dividends to them? And that was quite challenging because vanity metrics means nothing to an operator in the Clare Valley. They just don't see the metrics coming through the bottom line or visitation from social. So we had to really look at our role in the marketing team and to see how we wanted to fit within demonstrating the worth to industry. And so really what we've done over the last 12 to 18 months has been a really interesting testing period, and we've really committed to swinging the pendulum in the other direction, and getting quite far from the feel and the plan, the thinking stage, to the sort of more of the booking and conversion stage. And without hopefully being too obvious to our community, we've really focused on evolving the social strategy to traffic to site and ATDW leads, which I will explain soon, and demonstrating social operator leads as well, which is, when you do an Instagram story and you do a tag, say if we tagged Darrenberg Cube, then we can demonstrate that we had 1,000 people click through to the Darrenberg Cube Instagram account, for example. That was our primary focus, and then our engagement and our vanity metrics were really sort of a minor secondary focus, and it was just about maintenance. It wasn't necessarily about growth. So we're just in planning stages for the next year, and we'll probably swing the pendulum sort of towards the middle of the 2 tests that we've done. But that's what's really exciting about social media, is really adapting and doing a lot of testing, because there's no right and wrong, and there's definitely no right and wrong for different industries. It's about what works for your business, and it's about who follows you. So that's probably the biggest learning, is really doing a lot of testing and a lot of measuring. And how do you measure? And for us, that's really sort of the crux of how we measure our performance, is looking at, you know, traffic to site and ATDW leads and social operator leads. So I'll get into that shortly, but just as a quick rundown, I thought, I mean, they're pretty interesting stats to share, and we're not sort of, we certainly don't boast about this. It's more just interesting, really, and I think it's really interesting to get insights to other businesses on what they can achieve. And by all means, you know, this is not super sensitive information at all. It's just a matter of fact. So our traffic to site from our owned channels, and this is like just so it's clear, owned channels is what we don't put marketing funds behind. So it's really our organic channels and our organic community. So we're just using our community to achieve these results without any funds. So we had just over 150,000 people to the site from Facebook and Instagram stories. And they're the two platforms that we use to get traffic to the site. So it's just two platforms. Product views. So just as a bit of a summary, our website is basically dynamite for us. And that's really what we do as a business from a digital marketing point of view. Our website is at the core of our strategy. And the key pillar of that function is ATDW, which is the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, which is a centralised warehouse for, like a cloud-based warehouse for tourism businesses to register, and they self-content manage the platform. So an example here is Valletta Porcini in the Adelaide Hills. They create a listing with the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse. And then we can pull that through on our website, and every other state does this as well. So it's just a really great centralised database for us to be able to feature a lot of tourism businesses without us content managing, because that would be a nightmare. So we are focused on heroing our ATDW listings, which is our operators, on our website. And then a lead is what that lead means is we want not only to them to view this listing, which is a product view, we want them to click on the website, so the big red button at the bottom, or we want to click on their email address, or if they've got a phone number, which Valletta Porcini doesn't, then we want them to click on the phone number as well. So whenever someone clicks on that, that's how we define a lead. So as you can see, we had 13,500 leads, which is at the very, very pointy end of the conversion rate for our channels. So it's quite interesting to see, you know, the conversion rate percentage if you were to look at the traffic to site compared to leads. So I think the real evidence for us here is there's a really big space for us to play in the planning and the thinking stage. That's what we'll be looking to do over the next 12 months. But social operator leads is a really powerful tool for us to really use our reach on Instagram stories to feature businesses across the site. Across the website, and we want to get people to click on the operator, say Darrenberg Cube, and we want them to go across to their Instagram account and follow them. And then we've at least done, you know, we've done a job there getting reach for our operators. So just back to just a quick example, which is on the slide here. We want to make sure that when people type in a product, or say Darrenberg Cube or Valletta Porcini, we want to be the first person up on this site. And a colleague, Emily Primavera, will be presenting tomorrow. So hopefully you guys can tune in and watch her talk all about the digital marketing strategy. So how this looks for us on a daily and a weekly and a monthly and a quarterly and an annual basis is really through our analytics platform, Adobe Analytics. So we really like to see what our average is and how that week or how that month is performing against our average. And obviously with KPIs, which is a massive thing for us to know how we're performing, we want to be able to measure this, and this is critical. So with the light blue line, with the light blue line, that's our average, and on the left is visits per week to our website. versus the average. So the light blue line is the average, and the dark blue line is that week's performance. And then on the right-hand side, again, similarly, is leads. So what we really like to be able to see here is the peaks and troughs, and we want to understand what is the content that's pulling traffic and leads. And we want to be able to make sure that we're constantly, you know, having a circular funnel where we get people to the website and then book, and then or to, you know, head over to a website of our operator and to do some more investigation or make some bookings. And then we also want to keep that wheel in motion, because the more sort of recognition they get from operators, the more they're likely to think about taking this booking more seriously. So for us, what we need to do is we need to understand what content brings that traffic across to site. And this can be done, and you can do this in Google Analytics, and I'll talk through how we display our URLs and how we build them so we can actually understand where this traffic is coming from. But just in a table format, we can actually see what products have driven, you know, the most traffic and what have generated the most leads for us based on our social traffic. So this would either come from an Instagram story or from a Facebook post. So here, just some product names on the left, we can see that we've had Villetta Porcini, just over nearly 3,500 views, and then 606 leads. So it's a really great way for us to track and measure. And so how we do this is by creating Utm Links, which I'm sure many of you know about. But if you don't, this is an amazing tool. And we put the URL in, we keep the source and medium consistent, and then we just update the name or the campaign name, which is just the post. So for us, it's Villetta Porcini. And then we pop that into Bitly, so it's not super ugly. And then everything else is done by either Google Analytics, if you've got your Google Analytics, or for us, Adobe Analytics. And then we can really drill down and see what has happened on site thanks to our social posts. And there's content for purpose, and as I said earlier, we're still trying to maintain engagement. We will still be over the next 12 months testing what works. It's always changing, but for the last 12 months, it's been really evident that there are two types of content for us, and they serve a different purpose. And one is very much that reach and engagement, which is super important in order to be able to generate traffic to site. So there's two groups here. And whilst we're not together in a room, just at home or if at work, have a little think about which, whether the top or the bottom line would generate leads. Would it be the top row, do you think, or do you think at the would it be the bottom row that would drive more traffic to site and generate leads for businesses? So have a little think, and then the reveal is 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so it's the top line. Obviously, they're more tangible. You know, people want to know where that building is, what accommodation that is, what that little spa is, and where that restaurant is. So for us, there is certainly merit in putting, you know, amazing photos that are sunsets and landscapes, but we also really need to balance that out with, you know, for people who are in the planning and the booking stage who are wanting more information. So, and that is really evident with the amount of leads that are generated. So for the top left-hand side, there's been 610 leads, but if you were to look at the leads for the one underneath, you'd probably get under 10, because there's really nothing, there's no business apart from a tour operator, maybe that would be able to take you to that location. So that's a really key part of what we do in social and content. It's just the tip of the iceberg. And I just thought it'd be a bit of an interesting insight into sort of making social a little bit more tangible for your business. But then, of course, business as usual this year has not been business as usual. It's been the year of crisis comms. So how have the SATC used social and content in order to, you know, to share the messaging across our sorry, there was a little glitch there. So yes, how we use our social and content to reach people around the bushfire and COVID-19 crises. So obviously we all know what happened early January with the Kangaroo Island, and just before January, the Adelaide Hills bushfires. So between the 3rd and the 10th of January, it was a really pivotal time for us here at the agency. Our business as usual just stopped because Kangaroo Island was in the peak time of travel. It gets booked out over summer. So there was there was a lot of things that we just had to put a standstill on because the situation was constantly changing. We were checking and getting updates, on the hour, every hour from CFS, and we were learning about, businesses that had been destroyed and they were unconfirmed. So we just sort of took stock of everything, and we just sort of were quite silent on what we were doing for a day or two, on like a media front. But from a social point of view, in these times of crises, we're sort of the first tool in our arsenal that we can really just stand side by side with our community. And this was like a major blow to two regions that we're so keen on getting visitation to, and we're really close to the industry. So we were just humans in this moment, and we were just living with it, living through it with our industry. And so the first stage, it was just a matter of information sharing, and there was so much happening, around, and it was happening all over Australia as well, and we were all seeing through our feeds just really horrible imagery, and it was really cluttered with what was confirmed and what was unconfirmed. And we, being a government agency, we had access to SavePol and through our corporate communications team. So we just were sharing information that we had. And obviously the first couple of days, it was just about standing side by side, and pretty much just sharing how you can donate and how you can volunteer. And we were, around the clock for about 5 days. We just had our DMs it was so heartwarming to see social media shine in this way. And it's been a while since we've really seen that, but the support that was coming in from international, destinations. I remember someone contacting us through an Instagram DM in Scotland, and they said that they had a 30-minute community sort of memorial at their lighthouse. They shared pictures and videos from that. And so that was just a really nice thing for us to share with our community, because it just really touched everybody. And over the first 5 days, we were able to reach 5 million people through just what we were doing pretty much on Instagram, but also on Facebook as well. But Instagram stories was a massive one for us. And so we were able to get people to swipe up to the page that we had quickly built on southaustralia.com about how you can donate. But obviously in this Instagram story here, we hadn't done that yet. This was the night of the 3rd and the day of the 4th of January. So it was just about, here's how you can donate. And, social was a really important part for us to learn what people were wanting to know. Small things like the SWIFT code for international donations that wasn't considered before. So we had that, and we talked to the Mayor's Fund, and we made sure we got that information out. So it was just an information sharing tool essentially, and a big megaphone for us domestically, but also really internationally. So when sort of the first sort of day or two, we sort of caught our breath, we all just, stopped what we were doing, and we just realised that, there was a lot of people that were either on the island and they had to get off, or they had holidays booked on Kangaroo Island and they wanted to know whether they could still come, or what was happening. So we had a really big job to do on southaustralia.com with just educating people through FAQs and through the How You Can Help page, whether, is Kangaroo Island 100% burnt down, or what can I expect when I go there? Is this operator still open? Are they, what am I going to see when I get there? So for us, it was just about really sort of distilling that information into a really credible source. And these pages were a massive, massive driver for traffic through SEO. So we didn't even have to do much to get this out there. There was a massive appetite for people searching this, and we just had a huge traffic, which I'll talk you through shortly, but we just had a huge traffic to these pages. But initially it was a great way for us to be able to share maps that the design team, SATC, were just updating on the hour every hour, and just updating road closures, what businesses weren't open anymore, where you couldn't travel. But also it was really important to show that there was still a major part of the island that was okay. And that was sort of the starting point where we had to start turning the comms into, yeah, it's been really horrible, but it's also, we also need you to come. And if it's safe to do so, then you need to come. So that was a really sort of treacherous period for us, but it was a great segue into mobilising the Book Them Out campaign. And boy, did we mobilise. So we moved really quickly on the Book Them Out campaign. It was, yeah, it was a really amazing campaign for everyone, because it was so emotionally charged. But what was interesting is we didn't really have a massive job to do to convince people to go to Kangaroo Island. I mean, the people knew that you know, they had to go to support, and so our job was really about facilitating getting people there, and making it affordable for people to get there. So can you still hear me? I think you can still hear me. Sorry, I'm not actually sure if you can hear me. Sorry. Sorry, everyone, if you can hear me. Okay, I'm just going to go on, just assuming that you have access. Okay, so I'm just assuming that you can hear me. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, guys. Okay, so yes, the campaign was, we didn't really have much of a job to do with convincing people to get to Kangaroo Island. So we wanted to make sure that, yeah, we facilitated that really quickly and really easily. And it was all about, yeah, getting people to book through our partners. But you've probably seen the ad. I might just quickly show you this and make sure, yeah, okay, you can. So yeah, this is the Book Them Out TVC. The wild, rustic, okay, so I don't think you can see that. Oh my goodness. Okay, can you guys see this? Oh my goodness. Okay. This is a.
Hey Georgie, it's Ravina here. How are you going?
Sorry.
That's okay. You've been doing fantastic.
Oh, thanks. It looked like the screen had cut off, so I wasn't sure if anyone could see it. Can you see now?
I can see you, is what we've got.
Okay, all right, let me share my screen. Can you
so go back?
Okay, can you see this screen now?
Yep, we can see your screen and it looks nice and big. Fantastic.
Okay.
But the
Shall
videos,
I move on?
Yeah, we'll move on because what we'll do is we'll share those video links afterwards.
Later. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. That was a big technical fallout. So let's move right on. So we had another video. We won't play it right now, but the video that we had on the right was really about sharing it on social, because we had a lot of feedback from the Book Them Out campaign that people didn't quite believe that the footage that we had shared was shot after the fires, even though there is footage of burnt land. So we wanted to make sure that we had a video that was really depicting what Kangaroo Island looked like today, and then we can share that later. But that did really well on social, and those videos, yeah, just did a great job in spreading the message. So next, the Book Them Out campaign was really about facilitating, as I said earlier, facilitating people to book, and we wanted to make sure that there was plenty of information for them to realise that KI and Adelaide Hills was completely safe to get to, and they were going to have an amazing holiday when they got there. So we featured the key tourism operators on the campaign page, which is what you can see on the left-hand side. And then also just the frequently asked questions and what's open and what's closed on the bottom. And then what you can't see on that page down below, but what I've heroed on the right, was really heroing our partners that we featured throughout the campaign. And that was just, that was a pivotal piece in the campaign, is just really making sure that it was easy for people to get to, and also economical for people to get to, because we knew that we couldn't let a second wave of destruction happen on KI, and that was with the economy suffering, because it's one of the biggest the biggest economy driver with agriculture on the island. So we couldn't let that happen, and the partners really came to the table with facilitating that travel. So we went far and wide with all of these partner bookings, from C-Link to KI Connect to Rex, Webjet, Booking.com, Hertz, Budget, Car Hire. This is an example of an Instagram story, which is not usually as tactical as what we would do on Instagram, but it did so well because there was such a massive appetite for that. And then also, of course, our EDM. So we went far and wide, and of course it was all through digital marketing, through the partner relationships, through PR, and yes, it was flooding the market. So the results were really amazing and really, really encouraging. So obviously people were keen to get across to the island, but from our digital marketing point of view, on the day of the launch, southaustralia.com recorded the highest number of site visits to the website in a single day ever. And yeah, 61% higher the same time last year. And we had over 380,000 people reading the bushfire content. So the new content that we had developed on the website was really important for people to learn how their holiday is going to look on Kangaroo Island. And also encouragingly, a large portion of that traffic was to the pages of how you could help. So not only were we getting DMs from people telling us that they had just booked a flight to Australia because they wanted to come and volunteer, but that the content was being searched organically as well. Leads from our website to Kangaroo Island businesses were up 150% in the week compared to the same week as this time last year. And then also anecdotal reports from tourism businesses. So I mean, you probably heard a lot of stories about these as well, but things like Mount Lofty Rangers Vineyard had that on Sunday after the campaign launch, they had 30 people in their cellar door, whereas they had 3 people the week before, like the same Sunday, but the week before. So yeah, it just had a massive reach. And then also Sea Dragon Lodge on Kangaroo Island, which is a top tier accommodation provider. They were inundated with bookings because obviously with the sad destruction of Southern Ocean Lodge, they had a lot of people come through as bookings from Southern Ocean Lodge. So it was a huge success and something that, yeah, we're all really, proud to be a part of. And then no sooner did we catch our breath from bushfires, but we all, entered the world of COVID-19. So, this is a really interesting beast and one that's still moving. And, like with the third phase of our marketing campaign, The poor guys in the domestic marketing team and the digital marketing team are constantly reevaluating their media buys by pulling out of Victoria, New South Wales, and then dipping their toes into WA and NT. But with times like this, it's a really interesting time to innovate and to test, and that's exactly what we've done from day one. So we, for the first little while, again, social media was really I guess it was just the first tool that we could sort of just talk to people and just say, we're listening, we're here as well, and we're going through this with you guys. But I just remember, like, everyone was saying, I can't go on social media anymore because it's so depressing, and all I'm seeing are memes. And it was funny for the first day or two, but then 2 weeks of that, it was just, and the situation was getting quite dire. It was really upsetting to get on social media. It was so depressing. So we just sort of took stock and said, look, we're here still, and we're just going to post calming moments, and we're just going to take a back seat for a little while, and just because it was just such an unknown territory for us, and people seemed to really like that, and they liked that calming moment that we sort of instilled on social, and just interrupted their really cluttered, yucky newsfeed for a period of time. So not only did we, we were all in this as a health pandemic, but our tourism industry again was on the front line of being mainly impacted by this second crisis. So we wanted to bring that to the forefront for the first sort of little while, and we put this Instagram story out, which was just really depicting how you can help from home. The tourism industry, and that was really about, don't cancel, just postpone, because these people, it's their people's livelihoods as well. They're not only concerned about their health, but they're also concerned about their business. And so there was really simple things that people could do, and that was just, not cancel, just postpone. Buy a voucher for an experience that you've always wanted to do, that you will do when you get your freedom back. Write a review of your favourite operator or experience that you've done. Start planning, because we're all locked down, so get around the table with your family and actually start planning a holiday, something small to start with, and then see what happens, and then obviously the sharing it with your friends and family. We created a Facebook page, See South Australia from Home. We wanted to get that across, and that was really about having sort of a mouthpiece for businesses that didn't necessarily have an organic community that they could lean on, but they were innovating and they could still sell their product and their services through a unique kind of way. So we just gave them a platform to be able to connect to customers, and that was really important and sort of a lifeline for a lot of people. So then we moved into, while we were sort of catching our, sort of chasing our tail in the background of, giving social a bit of a breather. It was a bit of a sort of a duck on the water and then feet underneath. We were all sort of bringing to life the campaign, which was SATV, and it's so ingrained in our heads that because our acronym is SATC, I still say SATV, so it's part of our blood now. But SATV was really like it was bringing tourism to people's lounge rooms. I mean, movement was restricted. People weren't willing to go outside. They weren't really allowed to go outside. So tourism is probably the most obvious place that suffers, and how can we innovate in this time? And it was a really big business challenge for us, but it's brought through some really exciting things, and it's forced us to reevaluate, our video strategy moving forward. It's forced us to look at how we integrate with PR as well, through the consumer channels. So it's had a really great effect on us as a business, but also for our industry. It was, there was so many exciting people, exciting businesses doing exciting things that we really needed to elevate them and get them ahead of, in front of a global audience. And there was exciting things about people, doing wildlife tours and, Q&As about wine making at home. And so we were just, it was a virtual arena really for people to to tune in from a virtual world. So I think I'm running a bit over time. Won't play the video because we don't have time. Another little quick thing was just, you know, when in phase 2 of sort of, that was the Welcome Back campaign, sorry. So the Welcome Back campaign was obviously for South Australians when we could travel freely again. And it was just really about saying, you know, travel is now really important. We're actively encouraging you to get out into region. All the money that you saved on parking and petrol, put that back into the economy if you can, to regional tourism businesses. So it was really about dispersing people across the state. But not only that, there's low-hanging fruit for people that had booked a trip to Bali or Fiji or the UK. You know, that's not feasible anymore. So you've got so much at your fingertips here in South Australia. So we did a really fun piece around comparing South Australian locations to bucket list locations internationally. And it was just interesting to see the results. You know, you'd think that most people would know that hands down that's 100% Flinders Ranges and not Arizona. But yeah, it was just really interesting to see that there was quite an even disparity across votes. And just quickly with our EDM strategy, again, this is another tool that we've got that doesn't, you know, it doesn't really cost us a lot. And we are starting to improve the sophistication that we've got with our EDM strategy. And we not only just ask people to sign up, but we really want them to tell us more about them these days, because it just helps us personalise the communication that we send across. So now when you sign up, which is on the left-hand side, you get a welcome email, which is all automated. And then we ask you to tell us what interests you about South Australia. And these are our core brand pillars. And these, you know, this is the type of communication that we would normally send through EDMs, but then what we would like to start doing is really focusing people and sort of focusing our content dynamically to people who are interested in wildlife or food, so that we can be really quite automated and personalised about the information that we send to them, and depending on where they sit in the path to purchase funnel, we can be quite tailored with the content, so we're not sending offers to people who aren't in that space yet, they're still in the inspiration space, and vice versa. So I know I've gone over time, so I need to finish. There's questions that we can do in the panel that I'm doing with Kelly Noble after her presentation, so I shall zip it. But it's been lovely to talk to you guys virtually. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Hey, Georgie, thanks so much. That was fantastic.
All right, going over time, Ravina.
In case you haven't noticed, my voice is starting to go. But yes, thank you so much. I think those campaigns really did hit home with the local market. All the comments on the webinar platform, people actually went and booked and did manage to travel before COVID. So
good.
Also, people have been buying up wine and gin and all the rest. I think Natalie Giles put it best when she said there's 2 messages: buy local, explore your own backyard.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Pretty critical points.
Yeah. And then tomorrow, as I said, Emily Primavera will really talk about sort of the nuts and bolts of the digital marketing behind those campaigns. So if you're tuning in tomorrow, that'll be a really awesome one to look at behind the scenes, a lot more of what happened behind those campaigns.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Georgie. And we're about to throw over to Kelly. So Kelly is an iconic figure in South Australia's digital and social sphere, most notably as the founder and director of Glam Adelaide. Hi, Kelly. How's it going?
Good, thanks.
Through Glam, Kelly was heavily involved in helping South Australian businesses recover from bushfires with the Book Them Out campaign. She's once again performing an instrumental role in helping South Australia businesses reopen after the COVID-19 pandemic. So Kelly's going to be sharing a little bit about her work, and then following on from that, we'll have a big Q&A with both Kelly and Georgie. So over to you, Kelly. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me, guys, and interesting listening to Georgie's stuff, because Obviously through what I do at Glam Adelaide and Showcase South Australia, there's a lot of crossover, and I think we're all sort of in it for the right reasons, and we're all here to support South Australia and have been doing that for a long time. So just a little bit of background on me. I sort of moved to South Australia in 2000 when I finished my comms degree. And, I came here and I wanted to, get to know South Australia. I wanted to go out and all that sort of stuff. And I had no idea where to go or what to do. And I found it really hard. So I started a MySpace group, which was Glam Adelaide. And then that carried on, and I made a website from there. And, it's been sort of 15 years now. But we've come a long way, and we really focus on positive South Australian news. So we do a lot of lifestyle news, and we've been supporting small businesses for quite a long time now. So a lot of our clients and businesses that we work with, and people that we just know from the content that we do, they have that's the lifeblood of our stuff. We do a lot of food and wine, a lot of tourism and destinational stuff. And so on December 20th, it was our knockoff day for Christmas, and we were all off having cocktails, and the bushfires sort of started. And so we were seeing information from all over the place with, people that we knew and wineries that we were dealing with were all getting hit, or there was, information that Bird in Hand might be on fire, or it was Barrister's Block, or, it could have been Howard. And so we were really concerned because, we know these families and we've spent years sort of working with them. But there was no one particular spot for us to find that information. And so people were panicking. So while we sat at Orr in West Lakes with our cocktails, sort of just off the cuff made a Facebook group, thinking, well, everyone can kind of just share stuff in to the group so we can all know what's going on. And there was the KI bushfires. There was a few little ones started as well. So people from all over the place started sharing bits and pieces in, and I went out and found a bunch of admins to help channel that information in. And that really sort of kick-started everything. So we were involved with bushfire communication and trying to help channel information using social media from the get-go. So that was on the 20th. On the 21st, so on the Saturday, somebody got in touch with us and said Tilbrook Estate had lost everything in the fires, and I think they were the hardest hit because they lost not only their cellar door but their wine shed that had all the wine in it. So they lost everything, and they had the owner, James, had like a case of wine or two left at his house. So he was going to auction it off at the farmers markets the next day, so that he had a little bit of money to, I don't know, do something, anything. And so we promoted that. People came along. They had a huge turnout to this auction. I think they raised $10,000 or $15,000. The wine was worth $20 a bottle, but people were really amazingly generous. And then they donated the wine back. So, it really sort of showed us that people were wanting to help and wanting to get out there. So we started using the Facebook group to channel donations, help find, people are like, I need water tanks to fight the fires, because obviously they were still burning. So we'd find water tanks and we'd find trucks to ship the tanks, and then we'd get stuff to the farmers, and people were needing piping because all their irrigation systems had melted. So we were helping to do like really very hands-on, unusual stuff for us. But it was good because everybody really came together, and it was a brilliant way that social media worked, because it was instant, and we were able to channel all that information into one place. And then we were writing articles on Glam Adelaide. So we started doing articles about each of the individual businesses, what was going on, and we published a, let me see if I can change a slide here. There we go. So that was the group. And we had all the links for, you know, all the different places you could call to get help. If you spotted any fires, where you should call, if you wanted to donate stuff, where you could go and drop it. So it really became quite a resource. And we sort of from there we went, well, we want to do more. You know, there wasn't enough. That, you know, we just felt like we were really helpless and we wanted to do more. So on, I reckon it was Boxing Day, I pulled together a group of people I'd done an event with for the Migration Museum the previous year. And we sat down on Boxing Day and decided to do a fundraising event. And a few years ago, during the Queensland floods, we did an event called SA for Queensland, which I think it raised about $100,000, and it was held at the town hall. So we got the wheels in motion. We went, right, let's do another one of these. Spoke to the town hall. They were really keen to be involved, but their catering company was on holidays, so we couldn't get in touch with them. And so, but we started progressing all of this stuff. And then we got to a point where we had so much interest. We created a Facebook event and thousands of people had registered, and we thought, oh God, we might need to have a bigger venue. Adelaide Oval agreed to come on board as a venue, but then it was dependent on the sporting finals. So then on, and they had a board meeting about it on New Year's Eve at like 10 o'clock at night. So they were really committed. And then it ended up that Adelaide Convention Centre said they'd take us, and they went in on New Year's Day. So everybody was really, you know, going above and beyond. And so we booked a space for 300 people. And within a week, we'd sold 1,400 tickets. So the SA for SA Bushfire Appeal Gala was born. We had to pay up front, which was not what we expected, for a whack of the tickets and catering to lock it in. So there's a fairly big commitment on our part. So we started a foundation. So we started the Glam Adelaide Foundation from our caravan in Renmark, where we were trying to have a few days off with the kids. And again, social media was just everything, because there was no time for anything else. So we were using Glam Adelaide to write articles about it. We were still coordinating volunteer efforts in the background. And then we were trying to organise this gala. So I've got a quick little video, which is the summary, and I'll show that to you and then I'll come back. Oh, no, I won't. I love technology. All right, let's see if this will work. All right, come on. So, and there's YouTube. Excellent. Let's see if I can get out of that. So we ended up raising $414,000 from that night. We pulled it together in a month, and I'm still dealing with auction items 6 months later. So, but it was all for a good cause, and we were really able to bring everybody together for to help what was going on. But what was interesting, now if I can get back, let me just try and get out of this slide and I'll pop it back on. All right. So is this, no, that's the wrong thing. Here we go. Okay. So with all of this, the way that we sort of were working everything, and other than just running the event, we created a new bushfire category on our website specifically for the bushfires. People could really find those stories about the businesses that were affected, the guides on, which Adelaide Hills businesses to shop with, or how you could support KI businesses, which wine you could buy online and support those wineries that had their cellar doors shut, all that sort of stuff. So we did 137 articles just on bushfire related stuff. And it kind of shifted Glam Adelaide's content a little bit, because up until then people had known us for, bar guides and bits and pieces. So we were doing a lot more newsy stuff. And then, stories like this one, which is the bushfire affected wineries that need your support, went completely viral. This had over 100,000 hits just on the one article. It was shared all over the world. But then it actually got, it spurred on other content. So people that had read that story were getting in touch. People were buying wine from overseas. Different media outlets were picking up the articles and running stuff, which was, funneling more interest. So it was good to, on a global scale, get more support for South Australia, because, then you had all the stuff that was happening down the East Coast, and they were getting a lot of attention and donations. So at least we were able to sort of still try and get some attention on SA. So then, just when we thought we'd have time to breathe, because we were working 20-hour days, and it was really exhausting, we went away to Bali for a week with our kids who missed their school holidays because we'd worked and done all the gala stuff. Rolled into COVID, and and flicked that switch again, and just did all the bushfire stuff all over again. It feels like all the businesses needing help, people needing to get their information out, us trying to show where you could buy stuff online, who was delivering, which businesses were still open and trading. So we did a lot of stuff like that. So again, we started a new category. So we've got a section on our website just for COVID-19 information. And we've, up till, I don't know, this was yesterday or the day before I put this number in, we'd done 370 articles. And the first article that we did was on the 13th of March, which is when we came back from Bali. And they sort of started locking down all of the travel and suggesting you don't go overseas. So we just missed that quite quickly. But then we shifted everything online, and everyone started working from home from that date. But we're still very much in this space, and we're very much using social media to try and help businesses. And it's been really rewarding, both through the bushfires and through the COVID stuff, how we've been able to use our channel to reach people. So, one of the little stories is that businesses like, I'll tell you a bushfire one quickly. We got contacted by a large organisation who wanted to help, and they said, look, if you can give us a list of all of the people that have been hit by the bushfires, we'll just go and buy their stock. And they had the budgets to do that. So we sent through details of a guy he'd made all these cupcakes and cakes for the Christmas markets in Lobethal that were cancelled, and he'd done a call out and said, look, I don't know how to sell these. This is the major event for us. This is meant to fund us through the next month or so. So this organisation went and bought every single cake and said, well, we can't use them for our business, but we'll just give them out to our staff. And saved that guy's business. And so there were like lots of little amazing things. The prawn store was another one. They were selling directly to, you know, hotels and convention centres and restaurants. And so suddenly they had no customers. So they decided to pivot and go and do some direct to consumer stuff. And they came on board with Glam on the Monday before Easter. And we promoted the fact that they were coming to Adelaide, flying over with some prawns. And so they did some pre-purchasing, managed to sell all the prawns. It was so successful that they went out and bought a refrigerated truck that night on the Thursday before Easter. And so they were going to come back and sell 4 times more prawns for Mother's Day. And we were a little worried that we'd kind of oversold what we were able to do for them. But we ran some more stories and they sold out all of those prawns as well. And now they're doing pop-ups regionally. They're going to Clare, they're going to Renmark, they've got their truck, and they've been able to completely reinvent their business because we've been able to help get that message out to people. So there's been some really nice results of the stuff that we've managed to do using the social media and whatnot. And we've also put out relaunch packages for small businesses. So we've got little $500 packages to help people relaunch their business and show people that they've reopened and they're doing stuff. It's also had a really good effect for us. So financially, COVID's been tough for us, but from a numbers perspective, because we're doing much more content that's useful, we've been doing health updates with, you know, COVID stuff every day and, you know, just more general content, I guess, rather than just, you know, martini guides. We've seen sort of almost a year-on-year growth where we've doubled, and we're on track for 10 million this year hits. So we get about 500,000 unique browsers a month. So you know, the numbers are great, but it means that we can keep using that to give back. And now we're getting grants to help fund journalism about community projects and that sort of thing. So for us, our strategy's always been social. We started on social media. We've always been on social media, and it's, you know, it's how we communicate. And it's always been really interesting because people haven't had faith in social, and they've never really wanted to put money behind it. We've been in this space our entire time, and we can see how effective it is and how it can, you know, it's not only sustained us, and I've got a real grown-up business now. You know, it used to be a hobby, and the fact that I can earn a living out of this is fantastic. But the fact that we can help so many other businesses, and like Georgie was saying, you know, we can post something and then we can see that there's an immediate sort of knock-on effect, and people get bookings and people spend money. And for us, you know, we're far less analytical than SATC is, but we get the direct feedback from the consumers that we write about. And even, you know, tonight there is Maniacs is launching, which is an axe throwing bar in the old Coke factory. And we went and checked it out last night, and it's so fun. But from the stories that we've been running, you know, they've got all sorts of bookings already, and people are really excited to go in there. And, you know, they've struggled because they're from Adelaide, but they have an axe throwing warehouse in Melbourne that's shut and reopened 3 times already. So, you know, like everybody's hurting in different ways through all these challenges that we've got. But I think the important thing is that we all kind of make sure that we are online and that we are digital and we are communicating with our audiences, because I think we've got a long, bumpy road ahead. So the slicker you can be with social media and your website, the more secure you're going to be going forward. So that's pretty much my bag. It's always hard when there's just one side of communication. Is anyone there?
Hey, Kelly, I sure am here. Fantastic. I really enjoyed your prose. And that essay for SA Gala, I was so bummed that the twins were still breastfeeding so much. I really wanted to be there, but unfortunately, twins, what are you going to do?
Congratulations, by the way. It's,
but that's a sensational achievement, particularly the amount raised. There's been some great comments here on the webinar, particularly around how did you do it all? You were clearly exceptional, reactive, running on adrenaline, probably.
Yeah.
Kirsty wants to know, is there anything current Kelly would tell January Kelly?
Oh my God, go out and eat at all the restaurants. Like, it's like when you have kids and you're like, God, I wish I understood how much freedom I had before I had children.
Mm-hmm.
I think just everything that's happened, we haven't had a holiday, like a proper holiday, in a year, because we were meant to go away in May. And I think just all the stuff that we took for granted, you know, from a business, from a technical side of things, not particularly. Like, I think having a good team and having good people around you and good advice is just, it's so key. So I was really lucky with the SA4SA bushfire appeal. You know, we had so many volunteers. We had dozens and dozens of people who were contributing to that. And it just wouldn't have happened without them. And people volunteering their time. And our office was ridiculous. We just had like 20 people at any one time in there, you know, setting up auction items and doing setting charts and trying to organise entertainment, and even after the fact, all the admin on the other side of it. I think having people around you that have their own specialties is good. And I think just, you know, just in general, I'm trying to get more organised as well, because I really want to have a day off. I'm exhausted.
I can imagine. Okay, we've got 25 minutes till lunch. Georgie, if you want to switch your camera and mic back on, some of these questions are for you as well. Just another follow-up on that, Kelly. Jamie wants to know, what was your method in getting so connected with so many people and impactful communities?
I think I live and breathe social media. I'm on my phone all the time. I think it's just the way I work. So when I see something, I comment on it straight away, or I do whatever it is. So with the bushfire thing, I had no long-term agenda with creating that group. Even the event was going to be something small, and it just kind of evolved from where it is. Even Glam Adelaide, I mean, that started as a MySpace group. It wasn't ever meant to be a business. I think I'm not strategic. I'm not Georgie's in a very, structured, analytical place where they can still be creative. I'm not that person. I very much I'll do what's in front of, on baby steps. Whatever's in front of me, I'll do that. And then I'll figure out what to do next. I don't have long-term plans most of the time. I just kind of follow my nose, and one thing leads to another. I think if I planned ahead, I'd get derailed too often.
Well, you know, COVID, bushfires. I had another question around the bushfire group that you created on Facebook.
Yeah.
Can you speak to how you kind of fostered that community? Because when I joined it just kind of started with information, as you said, and then next thing we were seeing Tilbrook need people to go out and lay irrigation cables. We need people to go and help distribute hay, or, you know, people raising money for water, tanks to be sent out, and so on. Can you give us some insights as to how that community sort of evolved, I guess? Did you have a hands-on approach, or just trust people not to be spammy, or
People weren't spammy. We didn't have to worry about that at all. I think it was one of those things. I think having multiple admins was a really clever thing to do. Like, I'm really glad I did that, because it meant that even though I was very much the dominant force, I was posting like 30 times a day, I had other people who would take like their cues from that, and when they'd see similar content, they go, oh, this must be relevant, you know, we'll put that in the group too. And then they were all kind of moderating it as well. So it meant that I could still do my other stuff and not have to be solely focused on it. It was absolutely a quantity thing. Just absolutely everything I saw that was bushfire related, I'd share it into the group. And the content and the assistance, that all just evolved from there, because I'd see people asking for help and I go, oh, that's relevant. We've got people that might want to help. But we were even coordinating overseas volunteers at some point. It was like people were coming to us going, well, obviously you know what's going on. These are my skills. Do you know where I can go? And it was a force. Like, it was unbelievable to see how South Australia came together, and outside of our group as well, like just in general. I think it's one of the most community, I think it changed the way South Australians interacted with each other as well. I think we all kind of felt like there was this big warm hug where we were all working together and we were all trying to help each other and we were all trying to do the right thing. And I think it brought everyone closer together. And then, COVID kind of derailed a lot of that. But in the same way, like, I now know all of my neighbours because we had front porch parties where people would sit like 3 meters away with their chair and we'd be over there. And my neighbours who've been here for 30 years, like, we've never known anyone on our street. And so I think there's a lot more community going on, online and offline. So I think the bushfires kind of triggered all of that, at least in my experience.
Georgie, did you have anything to add to that sense of community?
Yeah, I mean, for the first time in a very long time, we'd seen the community behaviour offline really feed into online. And I think South Australia, like Kelly said, is quite unique in that respect. They're very, very protective of their turf, and not only were they really concerned about South Australia, but they were about Australia as well. And I think that was a really powerful thing that social media was able to demonstrate. It was becoming a news source for people, and it, some are more credible than the others, and that, I think, was really the role that we took, as we wanted to be a credible source of truth, and that was how we could mobilise as quickly as possible.
Okay, so here's a generic question for both of you. This one comes from Belle. What platform did you find engagement increased the most during these crisis periods?
Hands down, Instagram for us. We saw a massive spike in follower growth. In the space of a week, I think we grew like 8,000 or something, which was quite a lot in a week. And that was because of the stories that we had going out from the 3rd of Jan. So hands down Instagram for us, but also DMs. And since then it hasn't really, because Instagram obviously had the new general and primary DM, which was, thank God, because it was just becoming like, we just couldn't even open everything. And we said to everyone at the start, we want to get back to everyone, because we really valued their support from wherever they were in the world, but we just haven't. There's just so much in there. And that's a real testament, because that was the platform that people were using.
For us, it's Facebook. Facebook is, I suppose our Instagram is more, pretty inspo pics to make people get out of the house and go and see South Australia. Whereas, our Facebook page is sharing all of our news articles and, letting people know what's going on. So we're getting far more comments, and, last year for us to get 1,000 comments on a story was like, oh, that's awesome. That's a big one. And now we can get, multiple sort of 500 to 1,000 comment posts a day. Like, we've really leveled up with our engagement on Facebook. And then that's also driven a much higher hit rate for our website. So, on average we'll do, 30,000 hits a day. Whereas we were probably sitting closer to 10 last year. So it's all just kind of escalating for us. But yeah, I think that's certainly where we've seen the engagement and the growth.
Speaking
of
all
the community at all. We both said completely different things, but that's what's so interesting, is it depends on your audience and what kind of information you are sharing. And at the start of the the bushfires for us and COVID, it was just information sharing, and we were pushing people away from our website, and we were pushing people to CFS, to SA Health, to SAPOL. So yeah, it's about really understanding what kind of community you've got and what kind of audience you've got on both channels, or whatever channels that you do have. And so for some, it may be your website, not necessarily social media. You may have a really small social media following, but you may have a really interesting niche for your website that you can leverage from SEO terms.
So we're talking about the additional traffic, the higher levels of engagement that these crises, I guess, have given the opportunity for, gosh, this is a really bad way of putting it. But Missy basically asks, seeing that we've had these spikes in this last 6-month period, has this changed or impacted on your reporting at all? And how do you think that might impact future? So when it comes to, this is particularly for you, Georgie, reporting next year, year on year, obviously you'll try to grow from where we are now, but fingers crossed, people are actually traveling again and starting to engage in, I guess, tourism activities. How do you think this big spike is going to impact, I guess, long-term on reporting? And also, how are you reporting on it at the moment?
I think the way that we're reporting is not just hard numbers, it's really understanding about what people are wanting, because life has changed and we can't go to Melbourne, Melburnians can't come here, and South Australians and everyone is really concerned about travelling on a plane right now. So what's really interesting for us is there are peaks and troughs in thematic types of information that people want, and we can't necessarily report that with a statistic, but we can really listen to what people are reading on our website and what they're wanting from us on social. And road trips and caravanning and camping is a massive thing at the moment, particularly for South Australians and domestic audiences. So what will be really interesting is this time next year is looking at, has that content or has that theme or desire diminished, and has it been focused into different types of travel, more like sustainable travel. And so that's sort of the stuff that we're looking at maybe in a 12-month period from now. But from a hard numbers point of view, I mean, we will always report on the things that we always report on, and we'll be able to see spikes, peaks and troughs, and we'll be able to recognise those anomalies from bushfires and COVID. But yeah, I mean, it's really important for us to be looking at what's happening seasonally and what's trending from a keyword research point of view. And coronavirus is still really trending, and that has massive implications of what people are typing into Google. And we want to know what that is, because we might have the right answers for people. So we'll create content based on that. And, caravan and camping is a massive one, but then also sustainability is also another one. So it's kind of, from multi different angles, we can look and slice the cat however many times we like. That's not the right saying. I'm so bad with sayings. I shouldn't even say.
It's all good.
You know what I mean?
Yes, we do. Stephanie has a question particularly about Adobe Analytics. She asks, how does it compare to Google Analytics and perhaps Google Data Studio, and why it might be worth investing in?
So I'm certainly not the digital marketer in the team. That's Emily. She'll be able to answer that tomorrow. But I know that the reason we use Adobe Analytics is because we've invested in the Adobe Marketing Tech Suite. So the integration between all the different platforms like Audience Manager and Campaign, for example, we can see synergies between all of the products. So that's why we use it. It's a lot more sophisticated than Google Analytics. But in terms of like the really techie kind of stuff, that's a question for Em tomorrow.
Definitely. I'll keep it in mind for then. This one comes from Belle, again, directed to Georgie. I've seen a lot of polls online influencers, B or C grade celebrities broadcasting South Australian Tourism Commission campaigns. Have you considered using real people to back these struggling regions?
Yeah, so the reason that you'll see, celebrities on, with collaborating with the SATC is because they've got a really strong PR force, and the PR team work really hard to understand what type of people really will get talkability in the PR space, and this is not my space at all. But when they do try and look at the marketplace to see what media will pick up a story, they need to be really tactful about who they work with. And it may not necessarily be someone that you align with or Joe Blogs down the street aligns with, but that's what the media aligns with, and that's what's going to get the story picked up and spread nationally and internationally. And a great example of that is Hans. He's got a massive reach in the US with being on the TV show over in the US. So that's a really, really important factor, and we may not necessarily align ourselves with that type of celebrity or that influencer, but that is the research that goes into how we work with people and who we work with people. Micro influencers is something that my team do. We haven't done a lot over the last 12 months, but we sort of focus on content creation more so now than influencers. But we sort of did influencer work a couple of years ago, and those types of people are really about reaching the target audience. So our audiences that we're trying to target are high yield experience seekers. So we need to, and those people often live in Sydney and Melbourne, and they're the ones with the money because we want that money coming into the state. So we will make sure that we work with influencers who have people like that following them. So it's really quite strategic, and whilst it may not make sense, it's very complex in the back end.
I've got a follow-up question here from Fiona. It's for both of you. How do you maintain the sustainability of your campaign engagement or just social media engagement in general?
Is that to Kelly or
both?
You go, Kelly.
Look, I think we've just been plugging away at it for a really long time. I think the thing that's great about social media is that you can really test what's working, what's not working. So when they change algorithms and when different world events happen, like, what we've faced this year, you find out pretty quickly what's happening and what's not, what will work and how we can keep people engaged. So, we might do less of one type of content and shift to another type. And it's really just every single thing that we post, we look at. And again, it might not be in depth, but we look at, are people clicking on it? Are people liking it? It might be the photos we use, not getting great engagement. Like if we use people photos on Instagram, we don't get any engagement. They don't want to see people. Whereas some people really need those more personal photos to get the engagement. So we're just constantly, like all the time, we're reinventing ourselves and we're trying new things and we're changing our content, and it might only be slight, but because we live and breathe it, we notice the difference. Readers and people who follow us on social media might not see it, but we're like even on our Instagram, we've started reintroducing a lot more venue based and food based photos. We were really massive into that years ago, and then we just went landscape for ages. We've gone back to it, and we've had to drip feed it in, because if we change it all too suddenly, people will stop following us because they came to us for landscapes. But really, we're really in a space now where we want to help businesses, and we want to drive people into businesses since the bushfires. So, we have to be, even when we want to change things, we can't really do it overnight. We're having to it's all small adjustments. But I think we're just all obsessed with social media and helping people and getting that buzz from actually, helping and making changes. So we just keep at it. There's no real strategy to it. It's just, just keep at it.
I think one thing, like for us, that we really try and do is engage the community, and its engagement is different to what it used to be. It's not just commenting and sharing. And that's why Facebook stories, Instagram stories are really great, because you can have a two-way conversation now, and we do a lot of Q&As. And that way, you know, you can tell us what you want us to post. And we're in the office. It's not like we're some big agency who are not in touch with who's following us. We actively encourage people to answer those questions, and we also put out a lot of polls, and it's just that really interactive way that social media has enabled people, or really sort of diversified the types of functions that are available in the platforms, and that's why I would encourage people to try all the different functions and tools that are available to you from Facebook and Instagram. And they're designed to really have those two-way conversations. And like Kelly said, testing, like last year, videos didn't work for us at all. We shared a road tripping video, which is the perfect time because of what's happening with coronavirus. But that video has already outperformed our best performing content from last year. So it's reached like 1.6 million people organically in the space of a week. And that was just because we trialed it again. It was timely and it was seasonal. And yeah, video seems to be what people are more, I guess, in tune with at the moment. But test.
That's it. I've got a couple more questions before we wrap up for lunch. I guess Kelly, you did mention the speed of social media communications and the ease of that as well. And while it has been great for sharing information during this time of crisis, raising money, there also have been instances where a fundraiser like Celeste Barber's, for example, went viral, raised over 50 million, and then she wasn't able to distribute it beyond the Rural Fire Service in New South Wales. I guess I'm just looking for anyone who's got thoughts, Georgie or Kelly. Love to hear what your thoughts are around that.
I think, particularly with the fundraising stuff over the bushfires, nobody knew what they were doing. And I think that was just one of those really random moments where no one had really raised a lot of money using Facebook fundraising before. You'd seen people dabble and post things because it was their birthday and whatever else. But, everyone learnt on their feet with that one. And, even now, I guess Celeste's got some regrets. But I saw somebody who was just a random chick on my Facebook. She set up a fundraiser for Southern Ocean Lodge, and she raised, some ridiculous amount of money. And it was just, she didn't know them. She just thought it was a good thing to do. There were plenty of people that just did things off the bat. And, again, I think if they realised how much money they would have raised, they maybe would have made it a broader thing. So look, there's definitely downfalls to being fast, but you can't wait for 2 or 3 months and learn everything and then go, okay, we really need to be careful about who we allocate the funds to. Sometimes you just got to wing it and play ball. And, I think but I think the important thing is that we all need to learn from mistakes when they come to light and go, okay, so we'll play that for next time.
Yeah.
Same with anything. It's the same with using photos off Google,
Yeah.
Did that for a very long time until people started getting sued, and then you learn.
Speaking of which, Paul Gordon will be joining us tomorrow, so save your legal questions for then. I also have one here from Jessica. Do you guys have any thoughts around businesses that are boycotting Facebook as a platform?
What businesses?
There has been kind of this general, a sort of under movement, I guess, of businesses that have just gone, I don't like Facebook's data policies, or I don't like the algorithm, or I don't like other aspects of the platform, and then have chosen just to abandon it and use something else instead, which Facebook probably own anyway if they're using Instagram or WhatsApp. But yeah, I guess from my perspective anyway, my answer to that question would be it depends on your target market and whether they are on Facebook or not. But did you guys have any other thoughts or experiences or anything in that space?
I think it's yeah, it's a valid question, but then you can also ask the same question about, well, if I'm going to buy an ad and put this in a newspaper or put this display ad on news.com and that's owned by, you know, whatever conglomerate, it's always going to have the same questions raised. Yeah. So I don't think it's just Facebook. It's not just social media. It's media in general. So if you want to market your business, then in 2020, this is the reality. And social media just happens to be one of the most agile and one of the cheapest mediums to do it. Yeah, I mean, you're going to come into the same problems with where you place your media by, you know, online and in print.
Absolutely. Kelly, any further thoughts?
Yeah, similar line of thinking. I think, you know, we're not going to leave Facebook anytime soon. It's one of our major traffic drivers. And, you know, I think it's nice when you've got options and you've got budgets to go and do things otherwise. But, you know, most of the businesses I know don't have those budgets. Facebook is going to stay right where it is for us. You know, we've been using it for over 10 years. And as other things pop up, we experiment with them and we have a look. And I think with anything, you always try and grow your own database. So, you know, everybody should be trying to hold their own list of customers or clients or, you know, people in a mailing list, so that if Facebook does start charging like the you know, rumors that people keep posting for 20 years, or, you know, like if they suddenly shut down and Zuckerberg becomes, you know, I don't know, goes in with Trump and we all run away, you know, it's nice to have options. So at least you can still keep communicating with your clients. So I think you should never rely just on one platform for, you know, whether that's a political thing or a privacy thing or whatever it is. But, you know, while it works for us, we're going to keep using it, but we're still building our own database and we're still focusing on people coming to our website, so that if we, you know, if we stop using Facebook tomorrow, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but it would certainly make things a lot harder for us.
I think for small...
Sorry, Georgie.
No, that's fine. Just one last little quick comment. I think for very, you know, small to medium businesses, your first data source should be your own, and that should be a really major focus for, I think, growing, you know, your own first party of source of data, because one, you own it, two, you can control it, and three, it's the cheapest, and they often most, you know, well, they are who your audience is. So you can certainly leverage that audience a little bit more than you can with second and third party data sources.
Okay, I've got one final question which leads straight off of your answer, Georgie, which is just the best. Jamie asks for some tips for small businesses that are just starting out. Some good tips around communication channels they could be using and places where they can get assistance with that. I know it's a very broad question.
Okay, so I think the first couple of tips I would encourage is just to start small. Understand who you're talking to, like who does your business talk to? Are you talking business to business or is it business to consumer? And that will really, you know, inform where you start creating your social media platforms. Do you think it's easier to have a LinkedIn page as opposed to a Facebook page, for example? Or is that the right, you know, which is the right medium for you? Or do you think you're going to get more dividends out of creating an SEO strategy for your website? And, you know, social media is not a quick win. Like, it's not, especially not these days, it's still a pay-to-play platform. So I think people and businesses need to sort of shift their thinking that social media is a quick solution. It's resource heavy, it's time consuming, and just that's a tip that I think, you know, people starting out need to recognise. and whether, you know, investing in your website is something that you might want to focus on for the first 12 months or first, you know, 24 months. And then when you've got that right, you might want to then start a social media channel, or vice versa. And then what was the second part of the question?
I think that pretty much just covered it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just sort of jump in and say, similarly, look at what your business is doing. So if you've got a more corporate audience, you know, LinkedIn is great. If you're fashion and visual and food and that sort of thing, Instagram is a good spot to get, you know, click-throughs and sales and that sort of thing. Especially now that you can have the little shopping buttons on the image. And then Facebook, if you want, you know, a full range of, you know, content, and even just sharing articles and things. But one of the things I've noticed small businesses do badly is frequency. The businesses that post more often, you know, they're always in my feed. Even like fashion businesses, there's some tiny little fashion outlets that they'll post multiple times a day. And I see it and I just scroll past it, but every now and then I stop and I shop, you know. Your hit rate's a lot higher if you're posting more often. Glam used to post, you know, a couple of times a day. I didn't want to spam people. Now we post every 20 minutes. And, you know, like there's a lot of stuff that people won't see. But the more we post, the more hits we get because, you know, people that missed it the first time, they'll see it the second time and click through. So frequency to be top of mind and to share what you're doing is important. People don't know what to post. Don't just post rubbish. Don't have stuff to post, don't post. But just remember that the more often you're on there, so you kind of need to make a bit of a commitment. Just having a Facebook page and posting once a week. I don't know how well that's going to be, or how effective that's going to be for a business. But even with Glam Adelaide articles, like when we go and research a company, we'll go to their Facebook page. And a lot of people don't have photos of their venue. They don't have photos of their food. I don't have any idea what that business is like. Like visually, I really look for those cues. So, you know, a little bit of investment and planning. So whether you've got a website or no matter what social media channel you're using, think about getting photos done. It's such a basic thing that people don't do. Even on your phone, take photos on your phone. But that sort of thing is really easy for people to connect with. So just, you know, show them visually what it is that you do. Unless you're a plumber or something. It's you know, there's some businesses I think would be harder, but even then, before and after photos of bathrooms, like photos do so much, and so many people just don't use that as a tool. You don't have to be sassy and come up with interesting quotes and things. Just take some photos. People are very forgiving. They don't need everything to be super professional anymore. They just want communication and information.
So you may have heard a ding dong noise in the background. Lunch has just arrived at Refuel. I bet Kelly and Georgie are starving as well. You guys probably are too. I want to thank you again, both of you. It means a lot to us, you taking the time today to chat to us about what you've been up to and also to answer some of our questions today. We will be dropping off some Adelaide Hills wine to you soon. So please do let us know, Kelly and Georgie, if you have a preference for sparkling white or red. And it will come red. And we will be purchasing these wines from wineries affected by the Adelaide Hills bushfires.
Nice.
So that's our sign of support this year.
Thank you. One last thing I just want to say, we, with Showcase South Australia, we took over from Brand SA when they closed a year ago, but we're running the I Choose SA business directory now. So if you've got a South Australian business and you're watching, feel free to go and add your free directory listing on there, because we're really ramping up promotion through I Choose SA and Showcase, and we're kind of, you know, in conjunction with the stuff that we're doing with Glam, we're trying to really help businesses that way as well. So take advantage.
Definitely. If you haven't actually checked out the memberships at Showcase SA, it's definitely worthwhile. There's some great professional development opportunities there. And Steve has been running some amazing networking events. I think your first one, you had the Australian of the Year speaking. to a group of executives. So doing great things in that space, both for Glam and for Showcase South Australia. So please do check it out. Georgie, have you got any plugs that you would like to add as well?
Of course, get out and holiday in South Australia. It is such an incredible state, and I think there's a lot of places that we aren't familiar with as locals, and I think it'd be really worthwhile going out of your comfort zone and traveling to a region that you haven't traveled to before, because it's a pretty special place and people fly from all around the world to come and check out South Australia, and they never leave disappointed. So getting familiar again with what's in your backyard, it's changed a lot. And yeah, the money that would go into tourism businesses certainly sort of, helps to reignite the economy again.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And we'll be back at 1:45 with Ben Teo talking us through content creation. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Georgie. See you guys at 1:45.